Okay, 15.4, just had the privilege to do this. It's a terrible, terrible workout. The standard makes it pretty tricky. So 15.4, 8-minute AMRAP, 3, 6, 9, 3, 3, 3, then 12, 15, 8, 6, 6, 6, handstand push-ups and cleans. I wrote power cleans because that's really the way that you want to go. If you can, realistically, it comes all down to the handstand push-up and that strict standard. So here we go. First thing, warm up. Same as before. We just want you to get generally warm, rowing, air dyeing, 7 to 10 minutes at easy pace, followed by 10 seconds work, 30 seconds off, 3 to 5 times, just a little interval, not all out, but you want to get hot and sweaty, okay? Just an example of what you could do. Movement patterns, you want to make sure that you work your squats a little bit because that bottom of the keeping handstand push-up looks surprisingly like the bottom of your squat. And you also want to make sure that you prep that overhead. So again, this could be some flow movement patterns, this could be animal movement patterns, just whatever you need to do to prep the overhead position and the bottom of your squat, which is essentially going to be the bottom of your handstand push-up. Okay? Then definitely going to work some overhead mobility. We'll do a video in a moment for that. Also work the rack position, which is also the bottom of that handstand push-up. Okay, you want to make sure the upper back and shoulders are ready to go. And then you want to practice and test that handstand push-up. It all comes down to this. So you want to make sure that you find the right setup. We'll talk about that a little bit. And you want to make sure you test the standard, you test your taping, you test your judge. You really work on the communication with them or someone else who can help you to find the standard on each rep. Then build up the power clean load, nothing too crazy. You're going to build this up over maybe 5 sets. Don't do too much volume. It really doesn't matter unless your power clean is very low. And then you might have to spend a little extra time on the clean. And then just an example of 3, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, handstand push-ups and power clean. Practice the transition, optimize the transition time, optimize the setup, make sure everything is ready, good to go. You're ready to go, and then go time. Let's talk about the setup a little bit more. So first, the movement standards. Obviously, you want to make sure you watch the video, you read the instructions. There's a little discrepancy on the side that says shoulder width on one text, and then on the video it's hip width. I would just go with hip width, not to make sure you don't get no rep for that. And then when you're checking up for the standard, make sure that you have the tape and also something around the tape, so if you lose it, it's going to stay there. One idea might be to have a thicker tape, so it gives you a little proprioceptive feel on your heels as you do the repetition, so it's easy to know whether you hit above the line or not, because that can be a really tough thing to feel during this. Tape the floor. So you're going to find your best handstand push-up setup for the hands, and you might want to play around with this a little bit on the workout. It might help you to stay away from fatigue, but you need to go relatively narrow to hit the standard. If you go too wide, you're going to miss it. So find that sweet spot for you and mark it with tape. Maybe you mark another spot that's going to be not so ideal, but you know you're going to hit a rep from there. So if you have to go to that point at some stage because your shoulders will fatigue, you'll start to droop down. It's going to be harder to hit the standard at the top. Okay, but you don't want to guess where the hands go. Tape the floor, you know where the hands go each time. Make sure you have a nice little tripod at the bottom of that handstand push-up. And then non-bouncer plates, obviously for the cleans. If you go drop and go, you don't want the bar to bounce around, you don't want to chase it. You want to spend as much time on the handstand push-ups as you can. Now, talking about the pacing on this one, first step, break the handstand push-ups earlier than you think. When you think you have lots left in the tank in those first few rounds, you don't in the later rounds. So you want to break it early on, depending of course who you are, but by this round of 12, regardless of who you are, you're going to break it down. Maybe some of you might be able to do that. Maybe even break it down from the 6s, maybe break it from 9s. This is very much know thyself, test it out, and then you probably will redo the workout a couple times to find the right pacing for yourself and to practice the standard. And then touch and go versus drop and go on the clean. To be honest, it doesn't really make a big difference unless you're going for a really, really high score, where the touch and go at the beginning or sets of 3 might be beneficial. For most mere mortals, the clean has no relevance to the score at all. Drop and go is going to be almost as fast as the touch and go, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. Save yourself for the handstand push-up. Now, let's talk about the handstand push-up. First, kip. Okay, you're not going to do strict handstand push-ups even if you're Josh Bridges. Okay, so make sure you kip the handstand push-up from the beginning, from the first rep. Make sure you're familiar with the standard and you practice the standard and you can hit it consistently over time. Okay? Now, communicate with your judge. Very important. I would really make sure that my judge or someone else gives me feedback on my reps. Either saying heels to wall, go higher, push your head through. You want some coaching through this workout to make sure that you can get every rep to count. Those missed reps, they cost you a lot both mentally and physically in terms of fatigue. So you either want to have a coach, or if you don't have that available, the person judging you, giving you feedback where your feet are in space so you can hit the standard each time. Now, avoid failure. Rest too early, like we said on the pacing. You want to rest before you think you have to rest so you don't go to failure in this workout. Let's face it, you're going to go to failure probably at some point. But try to stay away from it as much as you can. Then, head through at the top. Just a tip, if you push your head through, you're going to get much more reach on that overhead position. It's a significant difference. You want to push the head through. You can chase the nose to toes, or you can look at the corner of the room to make that happen. Next, butt tight. If you start to lose that midline, that could be a problem. You might even want to consider having a white belt, one of those Velcro belts on this, to keep your midline as tight as you can, to help that on the handstand push-ups, to keep the straight body standard that you'll need to hit the height. Okay, something to think about, maybe a belt. And then toes to nose, so nose to toes, yes, but also toes to nose to pull those heels a little bit higher on each rep against the wall to meet the standard. And then heel to wall, okay? And I can't stress this enough, the communication with the judge or the coach is super important. You want someone who gives you constant feedback so you know where you're hitting the standard or not before you go for the next rep. You do not want to have those missed ones, okay? And then when we talk about the clean, of course, hook grip, save your forearms as much as you can. Low hip setup, it's going to prime the movement pattern for the kipping handstand push-up. And then don't do muscle cleans. Keep the hip primed by doing the power clean. If you really have to go for squat clean, this will impact your handstand push-up kip, but if you could stay with the power clean, relatively high receiving position, this will be good for you. Okay? Make sure that you do some work on your handstand push-up skill with this new standard. Make sure you have also ideally a mat underneath here on the setup so you don't bounce your head against the floor. We have judo mats in here, for example, great choice. And then it all comes down to this. So practice, practice, practice. Work on that skill. Stay away from fatigue and make sure to check the movement prep video for some ideas how to get your shoulders ready. And then also you can go to the trainingplan.co and check the full manual if you're one of our members. Good luck, guys.